welcome back for episode number 131 of the weekly playback. I was feeling a bit groggy, so I made myself a caffeinated beverage, which I put in this really pretty Swig mug. This is one of their Christmas ones. Swig, I don't know if you guys know about Swig. They make these like insulated mugs and tumblers and stuff like that, and I have a little bit of an obsession with Swig mugs and tumblers and stuff. So I have a couple from their Halloween collection and this one from their Christmas collection, which is so pretty. I honestly feel like this was the prettiest one, the nicest one from this year's Christmas collection, but unfortunately it did not come in a variety of cups and mugs and tumblers and whatever. So I ended up getting it in this big party size cup, which is perfectly fine. But anyway, so now you know about my little Swig obsession, which is a little bit of an expensive obsession, so I need to stop buying them because I feel like I have way too many at this point. I wonder if that's something that people would be willing to buy secondhand, because you do wash them. I will have to look into that because maybe I should sell some. Anyway, so I played some really fun games in the last week, so let's just get started. Let's talk about Shuffle and Swing. This is a 2024 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Robert Hovakimian, and the art is done by A. Giro and Gary Chalk, and it's published by Bitewing Games. This is a game which I backed on Kickstarter. I've never received a review copy from Bitewing Games. Now, this is a game with quite a bit of stuff going on in it, but first thing I want to say, when I backed this on Kickstarter, I really thought it was going to be a game about swing dancing, because I mean, look, it's got 2 mice dancing on a dance floor and it's called Shuffle and Swing, but it is not a game about swing dancing. It's a game about assembling instruments. Yeah, so I actually, obviously did not read the Kickstarter when I backed this game. So I just backed the whole trio of games that was being kickstarted at once, just because I liked the themes and, well, what I thought was the theme for this one, and so on. So in this game, you are going to have one big central board, which looks like this, and each section, each department is going to be filled with certain tiles, and the tiles look like this. Now, you in each department are going to have 2 build sections, which look like this, 1 rest section or refresh section, and 1 inspect section. So you're going to know which tiles go in which section because all of them have a specific cutout to indicate which department they'll belong in. And they need to go in their specific departments because, as you'll see, you will be able to collect a cat of a certain color, and I'll get into all of that. So all of these would go together in one section, and then all of the ones that give you a gray cat would go together in one section. So again, 2 builds always, and then all of the ones which would give you a black cat together would go in one section. So again, they each have a specific cutout on the corners here so that you know which section of the board they should go into. And then above each department, you're going to, before I say that, I just want to say that the rulebook says you should randomize how these are placed. So it is possible that you'll end up with your 2 builds next to each other in a department. And that actually happened to us in our game. We ended up with our 2 builds next to each other in each of the 3 departments. So going forward, I think I would like to house rule it so that the builds are always opposite each other. So it's build, rest, build, inspect. But I don't know how that would impact the gameplay, but I'd like to play it at least once that way. And then next to each section, you're going to have an instrument. So it comes with a variety of instruments. And again, you'll look at the bottom part of the instrument to see which sections these instruments go above. So like, for example, these are the instruments you can choose for one of the sections. And so you'll have 4 instruments to choose from, like organ, harp, piano, or vibes. So, so there's going to be 4 instruments to choose from per section. So there is going to be variability in this game. And each section will score differently during the game, and I'll explain all of that once we get into how it plays. Each player is going to have their own player board, and on this player board, you're going to be placing cats which are resting, and I'll explain what that means when we get to it. In terms of player pieces, each person is going to have a number of these regular build pieces, which are these like translucent discs, which look like that. And then you're going to have a few upgrade pieces, which fit over those regular build pieces. And then each person is going to have 3 dice, which represents worker dice. And on these dice, you will see pips numbered 1 through 3, and then advanced pips, which are diamond shaped. So like a regular pip looks like that, of course. So, you know, that's again 1, 2, and 3. And then the advanced ones will be 2, 3, and 4, and they look like these diamonds, as you can see. So everyone's dice will look the same. So again, regular pips and then advanced pips. Each person will have a worker mouse, which is going to move around on the main board. And then you'll just have some cubes, which will track how many build pieces you have in each instrument, as well as your score trackers around the board. And you're also going to have these other translucent discs, which will measure your, like there's like a favor, it's not actually called favor in this game. I can't remember what it's called right now, but you're going to be measuring brag. Okay, it's called bragging. So you're going to be measuring your bragging with these translucent discs on each instrument as well. So they will go over here and you will be measuring that way. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about in this game, so I'll do the best I can. So you're going to, of course, assemble the board, and then you'll place, so I played a 2-player game of this, and in a 2-player game, you use a 3rd dummy player. So I'm going to talk about it as though it was a 3-player game, because essentially it was with just a couple of changes. So I'll explain how this plays with a 3-player game. Oh, and also each person does start with 1 cat of each color. So each person does start with a gray cat, a black cat, and an orange cat, which is exactly why I'm wearing the sweater today. Okay, so you are going to place 3 inspector mice onto the board before you begin. And the inspector mice are just neutral colored black mice. And they're going to go into the inspection slice of each wheel before you start the game. And this is the first player token. Okay, so on your turn, what you're going to do is you are first going to move your mouse pawn. So of course, for the first turn, you're going to be placing your mouse pawn into an open slice of a department somewhere. So again, a slice is a pizza pie. We'll just call, well, I guess they're cheese wheels. So a cheese wheel is composed of 4 slices of cheese. So again, that's 2 build sections, a rest, a refresh rest, and an inspect section. So you're going to place your mouse into an open space where there is no other mouse present currently. So no, so you're actually going to place it, in an open space here where there is no mouse present currently. So, you know, you might have some spaces which are blocked off depending on your player count. So you'll only be using all 3 spaces if it's a 4-player game. So in a 3-player game, you can only have 2 spaces open. So if there's an open space, then you can place your mouse in one of those spaces on any department that's available. Then you can either use your own die if there's one available, or someone else's die to take an action. So you can only have a maximum of 3 dice per location, and it'll become obvious why. So I'm just going to use the image in the book here so that you can see. So in each department wheel, you are going to have a maximum of 3 dice in that section. So you're going to decide which action you want to take. Now, if you have dice available in front of you, which you will as you start the game, you can take one of those dice and place it out onto a slice in order to take that action. So let's suppose there was a build slice available that did not currently have a die in it. I could take my die and place it up here to show that I'm going to now take this action. And then the pip value will kind of determine the strength of your action. So let's talk about the build action. So let's suppose I put out my 2 pip die up here. So now I can do 2 build actions. So now that means I can place out, so I'm going to use an instrument that we actually played with when we played this game. So here's a violin. So in order to do a build action on a violin, let's suppose I had 2 pips. That means I can do 2 build actions. However, you need to pay the cost in cats. If I wanted to place my build token here, that would cost me 1 orange cat. If I wanted to place it here, that would cost me 3 orange cats. So you need to pay the cost in cats in order to build your regular build token. Your advanced build token will always cost you 1 less cat than indicated. So if I wanted to place my upgrade token around my regular build token as my second build action, then that would cost me 2 orange cats to build over here. And that would be a separate build action. So you could actually build your regular one and then your upgrade immediately around it if you have enough cats to do so. So that is what building is. You're going to be basically looking at how many cats you need to spend in order to place one of your translucent build pieces and one of these if you want to. And again, you're limited when it comes to these, and I'll explain why you might want to place these when we get to in-game scoring and stuff in a little bit. So that is what the build action is. After you have used your die, you are then going to tick it up by 1 pip and then move it to the next available die spot clockwise within that wheel. So it's not going to leave the wheel. Now, if it was already, let's say, a 3 pip and you were supposed to advance it, in that case, it's going to come off and go to a break room. An adjacent break room if there is an adjacent break room spot available. So you'll see that these are the break room spots. So your 3 pip would come off and become a 2 diamond, an advanced die, and then sit in the break room. And it has to go to an adjacent break room. So that's what happens if you would end up ticking up a 3 die. So you would remove it instead of moving it to another empty spot within the same wheel. And the same would happen if you're using a 4 advanced die rather than moving it to the next available spot in the same wheel after you've used it. It would once again become a 2 diamond and go to a break room. And I'll explain how you get dice from the break room in a little bit. So that is a build action. So after you have spent the cats in order to build, those cats will now rest on your player board. You will decide where on your player board they're going to go to rest in any open quilt spot. Also, I should mention that when you take an action on a cheese wheel, if you used your own die color, you get to collect the cat color indicated on that cheese wheel. So again, 1 wheel is dedicated to gray cats, 1 has orange cats, and 1 has black cats. So if you took the build action using this build cheese slice within that department, you would get a gray cat if you used your own die. If you use someone else's die, they would get the cat instead, not you. Okay, so that was the build action. Let's talk about the rest action. The rest action means that you get to wake up cats which are sleeping on your board and return them to your available cat supply so that now they can be used to build again. So let's suppose I do a rest action with a die that has a value of 2 on it. That means I can wake up all the cats in either the 2 column or the 2 row. However, if you want to do an upgrade action, you can spend a milk bottle, if you earned a milk bottle, and I'll explain how you earn these, in order to wake up cats from both the column and the row. So it pays to have milk bottles and wake up more cats if you're able to. So as you start the game, you're obviously going to want to put your exhausted cats in the lower value die columns and rows, but as the game progresses, you're going to start putting them into the higher value dice rows and columns, because those will be what's available on the cheese wheels for you to use when you do the rest action. So again, after using the die for the rest action, you then uptick it by 1 pip. And again, I explained what happens if it's a 3 or if it's a 4 of diamonds, then you'll move it to the next empty spot within that department. And that concludes your turn. And again, you would have collected a cat if you used your own die, or if you used someone else's die, then the other player would have collected a cat for whichever cheese slice you used. So that is the rest action, and that's how you get back your cats in order to build more and more. The last action you can do in this game is the inspect action. So when you use the inspect action, the number of pips on the die is going to indicate how many spaces the inspector mouse will move along various pathways, which includes all of these white dots, and it includes the white dots on these various black sections as well. So you'll be moving the mouse from one spot to another, and you'll be able to collect points. The inspector mouse is going to inspect all of the building that the players have done. So if you had a 3 pip on the inspector die that you were using. You would, if the mouse was already not on the board, so if it's the first time someone is doing the inspect action, they would get to decide where the mouse starts. And then you're going to put down the mouse, and then each location that the mouse passes through will be inspected, and the players will earn points. Now this is where you will earn points for your regular build pieces and your upgrade pieces. So each piece in a location will score the number of points that's indicated by the number of cats it cost you to build. So for example, if I think that's the way it works, but let me just double check. I just want to double check that. Yes. Each piece there scores the displayed number in points, correct. So for example, if you spent 3 cats to build a piece, that if the inspector stops there and you have a build piece there, you're going to score 3 points for your translucent piece, which is there. And the upgrade pieces, which we talked about earlier, will also score the same number of points, even though they cost fewer cats to build. But again, you have fewer amounts of these in your supply in order to build. So let me just tell you how many you have of each actually. So yeah, so each player is going to have 6 of these. So you only have 6 of these to build, and each player is going to have 25 regular build pieces. So 25 regular build pieces that you can build, but only 6 upgrade pieces. So you definitely want to be careful about where you build these, because that's going to get you a good number of points if you use the inspect mouse. So yeah, so that is the inspector action. And then again, you know, your die will uptick. And again, if it's a 3 or a 4 of diamonds, it'll go to the break room. And then otherwise you move it clockwise to the next open space. And again, of course, if you used your own die, you take a cat of the color indicated. Otherwise, if you use someone else's die, they get a cat. So those are the 3 main actions on the board. The special upgrade action for inspect, if you have a cheese, the cheese, if you manage to get a cheese, that would allow you to skip over someone else's build piece when you're counting the number of spaces that the inspector moves. So that is what you can do with the upgrade for inspect. If you wanted to do the upgrade for a build, you can either upgrade on another player's build space with your own upgrade piece, or treat one of your cats as a cat of any other color for the build action. So if you manage to earn a ladder throughout the game, and you're going to earn these upgrade pieces by going up on the brag track, and I'll explain what the brag track is in just a minute. But if you had earned a ladder, it can come in really handy if you need to build, but you don't have a cat of a certain color, because then you can treat one cat as a cat of another color. Or you can add your upgrade piece to someone else's main building piece. Like, so for example, if someone built on a 3 space and you want to score 3 points, if the inspector mouse lands there, then you can use a ladder to add your upgrade piece to their regular build piece. Okay, so what happens if a die goes to a break room? So we talked about the dice in the break room. So the next time it's your turn, let's suppose you were here and you have a die in the break room here, and there's an available spot here for you to go to this department. If you jumped over your die in the break room, then that die comes back to you, available to use, and you also get to go up 2 spaces on a brag track. So each instrument has its own brag track, and as you're advancing, that will indicate maybe how many points you get at the end of the game, and I'll explain why maybe. And as you advance, you'll be able to collect those special bonus tokens, which will help you to upgrade various actions. So that is what going up on a brag track means. You do not need to go up a certain brag track that's like adjacent to the department where your die was, blah, blah, blah. No, you can choose any brag track you want. So if you jump over your own die, you get 2 brag track advancements. So you can put 2 advancements on one brag track, or you can split them up between 2 different brag tracks. It's totally up to you. As you're building pieces throughout the game, you are going to have a cube along the side as well, indicating how many pieces you've built. So for example, if you've built 3 pieces, your cube would be next to the 2 because you need 1 more in order to advance your cube to the 4 spot. And your brag track token goes on these spaces. At the end of the game, you'll score points based on the lesser of where your cube or token is if that instrument is completed. So you want to try to keep your build pieces and your bragging pretty close to each other in order to score points at the end of the game. Also, the game end is triggered when 2 instruments are completed, and then you'll finish off the round. That may allow a 3rd instrument to be completed, but if the 3rd instrument is not completed, whoever is lowest on the brag track of an uncompleted instrument will lose 10 points at the end of the game. However, if you're really high on an incompleted instrument, you are not going to score points because only completed instruments are scored at the end, and incomplete instruments will cause the person who's lowest on the brag track to lose 10 points at the end of the game. So I think I've gone through all of the actions. So just to kind of summarize, you are moving your mouse pawn from one section open spot to another in order to then take a die action of some kind, and you will be upticking dice and moving dice available to the next spot. Dice can also move to the break room and come back to you, which would then allow you to place that die on a subsequent turn in another department. So it is possible you could end up with 2 dice in one department, or even 3 if there was available space, because again, you're only limited to 3 dice per department. So that way the dice can rotate when needed. So you're going around trying to take actions and, but also hoping that a spot is available for you to place your mouse in a certain department. You do not need to move clockwise around this board, this main center wheel, in order to take action. You could simply, if there's like another spot available in the department in which you're already in, you could just jump to that available spot. You must jump to an available spot though. You cannot remain in the spot which you're in. So if there is another available spot in the same department because no one else is there, you could just jump there if you wanted to. But you could also just jump over here if there's an available spot there. You don't need to move clockwise. You don't need to jump in order and so on. You just need to go to an available spot on your turn and then use a die on one of the cheese wheels, or place a die of your own if there's an available spot and you have one in front of you that could be placed, and then do the associated action. So again, you're just trying to effectively use your cats, efficiently use your cats, be mindful of, waking up your cats in order to build more and more. You're going to be mindful of your brag track and trying to keep your brag track and your cube pretty even, because that will impact scoring. Now, throughout the game, there is going to be in-game scoring. Whenever a section of an instrument is completed, that section will score, and each section of an instrument is going to score differently. So all instruments have different scoring. So for example, this one will score based on these lines. Once one black line is filled with building pieces, that whole black line will then score. So whoever has the most pieces within a section will score 1 point per piece plus an additional 2 points. So that's how scoring works in like this section. But there are other sections. So for example, there was a section where there was some kind of area control going on. Let me see if I can find that one. I believe it was the organ. Yeah, so with this one, it would be like area control. It would be like who has the most pieces around here in order to score the points in the center. And again, your inspector mouse can also get you a lot of points. So, if you want to try to get a lot of points, you would want to build on the higher value piece areas so that your inspector mouse can land there and get you a lot of points. But this section is going to score once all of these spaces are filled with building pieces. So each instrument has a different way of scoring its sections. And again, the game end will trigger once 2 instruments have been completely built, and then it is possible for the 3rd instrument to be built at that time as well, as the people are finishing up their turns for that round. Then end game scoring. So again, if there is an unbuilt instrument, the person who is in last place on that brag track will lose 10 points. Oh, actually, sorry, it's not 10 points. It's 2 points for each unbuilt space on the instrument. So I guess there were 5 spaces on the unbuilt instrument in our game, so that's why I thought it was 10 points, but it's just 2 points per unbuilt space. And then you're going to look at the lower of your 2 trackers on each built instrument and then score the victory point value that's indicated there. And of course, you would have earned points throughout the game from scoring instruments as the sections were being built and from the inspector mouse. And then whoever has the most points will win. So I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a really, really fun game to play. Just, you know, puzzling out which department to go to with my mouse, if there was a spot available, which action to do, maybe setting myself up for a better turn in the next turn because, you know, a spot which I wanted to go to right now wasn't taken. So I just really liked the puzzle of this game. I think it's a really fun game. I think, and it'll get you thinking, but it's not super difficult either. Like, it might seem like a lot at first, but once you just learn the basic actions and learn how you might boost a certain action and just, you learn how to, what you're supposed to do with the dice, it's pretty straightforward at that point in time then. So I thought it was a really, really fun game. What I don't understand is why there are mice who are, worker mice, and then there are cats that you're deploying as workers in order to build out the different instruments. So are like the mice controlling the cats? I don't really know. That seems a little bit backwards, my cat would say. So yeah, but really, really fun game. I really, really enjoyed this game, and it's definitely going to be staying in the collection for the time being. I really enjoyed the puzzle of this game. Yeah, and I did forget to mention one thing. If you ever have a cat come back that needs to go to sleep, but all of your spaces are filled, then that cat will simply just go back to the supply, because your cats do need a spot to sleep if they're tired. So yeah, so that is Shuffle and Swing, and it does come with these handy dandy player aids. I do wish that there was a bit more information on these, but it will remind you of end-game scoring and end-of-game scoring. And I wish I'd been paying attention to the end-of-game scoring, because I was really high up on one brag track. I think I was on the highest space possible on the brag track of one instrument, which unfortunately remained unbuilt at the end of the game. So that really, throughout the game, my opponent thought I was going to win, but then in the end, that instrument remained unbuilt. And if I had paid attention to this, I would have focused more on building out that instrument. So yeah, but super, super fun game. I recommend checking it out if you like games, that are thinky and just a lot of fun though. And if you enjoy like dice games, and keeping track of like things with, determining the strength of an action with different dice. And yeah, I think it's fun. I don't really know what else to say about it. I think it's strategic and fun. So yeah, so that was Shuffle and Swing. And again, it is not about swing dancing. So check it out if that sounds like something that you might be interested in. So yeah, so let's move on. Let's talk about Coffee Rush. This is a 2023 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Yujin Han, and the art is done by Siwon Huang, and it's published by Korea Board Games. Now, this is a contract fulfillment and grid movement game. So in this game, you are a barista, and each person is going to have a barista board, which looks like this. You will have upgrade tiles, which you can unlock in these spaces, and it shows you like which upgrade tile is in each space, and that looks the same for everyone. And you're going to have different levels here, 4 in total. So when you start the game, you will start with 2 recipe cards. Everyone except for the first player will start with 1 card next to the 1 and 1 card next to the 2. The starting player will start with 2 cards next to the 1 and 1 card next to the 2. And in reverse player order, you're going to take turns placing your meeple onto the board and collect the resource which you've landed on. And I believe that that's all you start the game with. And of course, you start the game with 3 coffee cups, in which you're going to be placing different resources which you will be collecting in order to complete different coffee recipes. So the different kinds of items that you'll be collecting are like water, steam, mint, caramel, and over here we have ice, milk, coffee beans, and chocolate. So those are the different kinds of ingredients, and I'll just show you some examples of recipe cards. So there are some specialty cards which use more ingredients to complete, and then you have some like non-specialty ones which use like ingredients, which might be a little bit easier to get. Though you will notice that some ingredients, there's only one spot on the board for you to get it. Like for example, the chocolate or the mint. So in reverse player order, you're going to place your meeple somewhere and collect that ingredient. Then starting with the first player, you can move up to 3 spaces. You can move through a space where there's another player present and collect that ingredient as well, but you can never end on the same space as another barista. So for example, if I started here and there was another barista here, I could go here, collect a milk, I could go here, collect an ice, and then I could go here and collect a steam and end over there if there is no barista present there. So you will collect an ingredient for each space you pass through and where you land. And again, you can only end your turn on a space where there is no other barista present. So it does get trickier and trickier as baristas start moving around and they may jam you up. In which case you want to try to unlock one of these if possible, maybe to kind of help you out. Also, if you do complete a special contract, you will earn these specialty rush tokens, and I got cut off. So as I was saying, you can turn in one of these tokens for an extra movement if you need to. So you are trying to complete your various recipes as quickly as you can, because on your turn, after you have collected your ingredients, you must add them to a cup. So you have to add them to a cup of yours. You can't just like leave them out. If you leave them out, they simply go to waste. So you have to decide which cup you want to add that ingredient to. Then if you see a cup has completed the recipe of an order, you can move that order to the top of your board, which will be worth a point at the end of the game, unless you turn in 3 of them to unlock one of your special tiles. And each special tile you unlock, which would give you a special ability, would be worth 2 points at the end of the game. So you want to try to complete your orders. And again, they are a little bit difficult to complete, like especially some of them like these ones. And then at the end of your turn, any orders you did not complete will slide down by 1 space. If you had any orders in the 4 spot that you did not complete, those are going to slide down and go to the bottom of the board and be worth a minus point at the end of the game. For each incomplete order that you did not complete in time will be worth a minus point. So you, on your turn, will try to fulfill your orders, and then at the end of your turn, you will move each recipe down by 1 spot. And again, if it slides off of the 4, it goes to your negative pile. And then if you completed an order, then the next 2 players after you have to select a new recipe card and place it next to their 1 row. So it's always the next 2 players in turn order in a 4-player game. So for example, if I completed an order, now the next 2 players each have to take a recipe card and add it to their 1 slot. So as more and more baristas in this game are completing orders, you are getting more and more recipes to now complete as well. So it does become a rush. So like it kind of really starts ramping up at a certain point. If someone completes 2 orders on their turn, then the next 2 players will have to take 2 recipes each. So you can, if you're not efficient with completing recipes, you're going to have recipes start piling up as other baristas complete their orders, and you're going to get screwed over, which is kind of what happened to me. I was not very good about completing recipes, and I kept on having to collect recipe cards, which were then ending up uncompleted. And so it was not good for me. But that is essentially the game, and you're going to continue in that fashion until game end. Okay, I got cut off again, but we were talking about game end, I think. So the game ends when if a player who is the active player has 5 or more penalty cards, then the starting player who has this token is going to flip it to the closed side. And I believe if it was the starting player who flipped it, then I think everyone else gets 1 more turn. So it says when ending your turn, check whether the starting player token is on the closed side. If the starting player is on the open side, it is the next player's turn. If the starting player token is closed, you can proceed to, okay, so no, you immediately end the game once this turns to closed. Then at game end, you will get 1 point for each completed order card. Again, if you upgraded any tiles which gave you special abilities, you would get 2 points for each of those. and again, -1 point for each penalty card. And then whoever has the most points would win. So these upgraded tiles, how you would get them is by turning in 3 completed orders, which would be worth 3 points if you don't do that, and turn them in order to activate one of your upgrade tiles, which is worth 2 points. So you are losing a point, but it's giving you a special ability, which could be very useful. So there's one where you can receive 2 ingredient tokens on cells with another meeple. So if you pass through a cell that has another barista on it, instead of collecting just 1 ingredient, you can collect 2. So that can be very beneficial. There's diagonal movement, so you can move to diagonal spots instead. There's double corners. You receive 2 ingredient tokens on the 4 corner cells of the ingredient board. So if you pass through one of those or land on one of those, you would get 2 ingredients instead. And then finally, there's one where you receive 2 ingredient tokens on caramel, chocolate, water, and tea leaf cells, which is really nice, which is like the special spots. So if you unlock that, then you can get double the ingredients there, which can be very beneficial because all of those, there's only 1 spot on the board in order to collect those. So I think unlocking that one would be very beneficial early on. So yeah, so that is essentially the game. So again, it really ramps up when players start completing more and more recipes, and you have to collect more recipes as other baristas complete more orders. And, again, recipes can fall off the line if you don't complete them in time and be worth negative points. So yeah, just a fun little contract fulfillment game, which I enjoyed. I thought it was fun and I would like to play it again. I'm just sorry that it took me so long to play this game because I've had it for more than a year now. Again, I purchased it at Essen in 2023. And from what I've heard, it is currently out of print. I don't know if the publisher is going to print more copies or not. So that is something that you can look into if you are interested, because I'm really not sure about that. But yeah, but I did enjoy my play of this game, which again is Coffee Rush. And since I picked it up in Essen, I have the version which has Korean writing on the cover, but it did come with an English rule book. So yeah, so that is Coffee Rush. So let's move on. Let's talk about Bosa. So this is a 2024 game for 2 to 5 players designed by Aaron Deneau and Prospero Hall and is published by Funko Games. So this is a tableau building game. This is a copy I purchased myself from Barnes & Noble during their after Christmas sale. So each person is going to have their own player board, and each person's player board looks like this, and you will have a resource tracker for each type of resource, which is pottery, thread, and fish. So you'll start at the 1 spot, and each person has like a symbol, which will be their point tracker on the main board. So the main board looks like this, and this is going to keep track of your points because you will be, getting points throughout the game and then at the end of each season. This game takes place over 3 seasons. So in each season, you have a certain number of cards, and different cards have different things on them, which I'll explain, and they come in different colors. So depending on player count, you're going to remove a certain number of cards from each season. I played this game 3 times. I played it once at 2 players, once at 3 players, and once at 5 players, and I enjoyed it at all player counts that I played it at. Each person is going to start with 1 starting card, which will be randomly dealt to them at the beginning of the game, and you are going to place your starting card up here. And when you take a new card from the offering on your turn, you can either place it next to the card up here, or you can cover this existing card with a card like this. And then on your next turn, if you want to place a card, it would have to either cover this card or go next to that one. You cannot place a card, for example, down here if you haven't covered the previous cards in order to reach that level. So you are restricted in how you place your cards. So you can either place a card over here next to this card, or again on top of it, but you cannot go down here or skip an entire row. So as the game progresses, you're going to be building out your building vertically and horizontally, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. So you just can't like skip spaces, and that's very important. At the beginning of the game, each person is going to be dealt 4 objective cards, which will remain secret, and you will score 2 of them at the end of the game. I really like the fact that you can hang on to all 4 of them and then decide at the end of the game which 2 to score, because you might need to revise your strategy as the game is progressing based on which cards you've placed into your little town, because some of these objectives can be a little bit difficult to meet, and you might need to revise depending on which colors are available, because again, you are going to remove a certain number of cards depending on player count. So as you are placing cards, after you place a card, you will then activate each card in the column or the row in which you just placed the card. So if I had just placed this card on top of this card, I could now activate that column. So I would gain 1 pottery, and then I can convert 1 pottery immediately into 4 points if I have a pottery to do that. You can only do this conversion once. You cannot, like, for example, if you have 2 potteries, gain 8 points. It doesn't work that way. Some cards may straight up give you a coin and a fish, and I believe each person starts the game with 3 coins. Some cards will give you like an option of which resource to select. Some cards will give you this, for example, will give you coins for each yellow card you have in your town, and that includes your entire town, not just the same column or row. Some cards you can turn in 1 of each resource in order to gain points. So for example, this one, you can turn in 1 of each resource in order to gain 5 points and 3 coins. And then as the game progresses and you get into the other seasons, the cards get better and better. So here is a card, for example, if you activated this card, once you reach this card's activation, that would allow you to activate any other purple card's ability in your town. So that can be a really useful one to have. This one, you can turn in 3 of any resource in order to get 8 points. So just a different variety of cards. So again, after you place a card, you are going to activate either the row or the column where you just placed that card. And again, you cannot place cards out of order. So you have to either cover the previous card in that column or place adjacent to a card in that row. But you cannot, for example, place, so obviously you would not be able to place a card adjacent to a card in the 3rd column if you don't already have that card existing in the 2nd column. So you understand, I think, what I mean, and that you have to place cards in a certain way in this game in order to complete your 4x4 grid by the end of the game. So let's talk about so on your turn, you'll take a card and place it and then activate either the column or the row. Once everyone has taken 5 turns per season, and then you go to the end of the season where you have to turn in your coins, and you're going to do patronage. You do not have a choice about this. So you will look at the maximum amount of points you can get based on the coins you have. So for example, if I had 14 coins, I would have to turn in my 14 coins for this amount of points, because I'm 1 coin short of doing this one. If I had 15 coins, then I would absolutely have to turn them all in for this amount of points. You do not have a choice about patronage. So you will then collect your points after you complete your patronage by turning in your coins at the end of a season, and then who is currently farthest behind in points becomes the first player for the next round. So you're going to do this for each round, each of the 3 seasons. By the end of the 3rd season, everyone is going to have now a 4x4 grid again of their town, and then you go to end game scoring, where you decide which of your 2 objective cards you want to score. So here is one, for example, each red with all different colors around it, and that means only orthogonally adjacent. It does not mean diagonal. So for each red you have in your town that has 4 different colors around it, you would get 6 points. So if I had 3 reds with different colors all around them, that would be 18 points right there. Some of them are really nice. So this one is like each row with 4 different colors. So if all 4 of your rows have different colors in them, that's 32 points at the end of the game. And some of these cards will conflict with each other, which is why I think it's great that you get to hang on to all 4 of them and then decide which 2 you want to score at the end of the game. There's one where it says that each column and row has to have only one like color in it, for example. So each row and each column with exactly one purple. So you would get to score each row and each column that has exactly one purple, 3 points for each one. So that can add up as well. So you'll add up your points, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game will win. So it's like a really nice, quick little drafting game. You know, I would say it's akin to something like Castle Combo, like a fun drafting game in which you're creating a tableau and trying to get a good little engine going. You know, it's a little bit more than just a quick filler game, but I would say it's still a filler game and an enjoyable one. So I really enjoyed this. I've played it 3 times now. I think it's a fun little tableau building game, and yeah, if you like, you know, quick card games and tableau building games, then this is one you might want to check out. So again, I purchased it from Barnes & Noble, and it was a game that I had on my wish list prior to learning that it was available at Barnes & Noble. And there are coins, so you know, it comes with these paper little pouches that have the different resources and stuff in them. So the resource trackers are wooden, which is nice, as well as the point trackers. So let me show you a couple. So for example, they look like this, and the different point trackers. And then the coins are cardboard. And there, if you do surpass 100 points, there is a 100-point token that you can take as well to indicate that you've passed 100 points. And you obviously will pass 100 points. Like your scores are going to be around 170 and so on once you finish this game. So yeah, so if you're looking for a nice little tableau building game that's colorful and with a little bit of engine building going on, but also some luck, then definitely check out Bosa. So that was Bosa, so let's move on. Let's talk about Cat Blues, The Big Gig. This is a 2024 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Rainer Knizia, and the art is done by A. Yiru, and it's published by Bitewing Games. And this is part of the trio of games which I backed on Kickstarter, which included Shuffle and Swing and Bebop as well. So I played a 3-player game of this, and again, it's based on an older Rainer Knizia game, which I believe came out in 1998. So in this game, it's like an auction bidding game, and you're going to be bidding on different cards, and you're going to be trying to collect tip tokens and trying to put your cards into different quartets in order to earn special quartet tokens and so on. So there are different cards with different like numbers on them and different kinds of cats on them. So in the game we played, we did not play with the 7s. I believe the rule book said we could leave them out for the basic game. I'm not sure how they changed the game, or you know, I think they might add some special like thing if you include them. But otherwise, the cards have jacks. There's 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. So there are no 6s. So yeah, so 1, 2, 3s, 4s, and 5s, and jacks. So you're going to be dealt a certain number of cards, and on your turn, the active player is going to reveal cards from the deck one by one until they have to stop. They have to stop if they reveal a card that has already been turned face up, or if they reveal a jack. In the case that they reveal a jack, then everyone immediately draws 1 card from the draw pile. And then you start bidding. So you are going to be bidding on the cards that are laid out, that the active player just laid out, and you are trying to create quartets that you want to meld. So you can bid cards from your hand. So you can bid either cards of different values. You can say, I'm bidding like 2 cards that have different values. You do not indicate the values in which case. Or you can bid cards of equal values, in which case you do announce the values and the number of cards. You can say, I bid 3 2s. So there's a hierarchy of bidding. So it says a bid of equal values is always higher than a bid with the same number of cards of different values. A bid is always higher if it consists of more cards than the preceding bid. If a player bids the same number of cards than the preceding bid, they must bid a higher value. So you're going to continue bidding until everyone has passed and someone wins the bid. Then you have the option to meld. But first, if you used a jack in order to bid, a joker can count as any other value. If you used a joker to bid, you must place it in front of you, and it will count as a negative point at the end of the round, possibly. Otherwise, you take the cards you just won and you can try to meld quartets. So melding means that you have 4 cards of the same kind. So now if you have 4 cards of the same kind, like for example, if I now, after winning a bid, have 4 3s, I can meld this quartet and place it in front of me and take a quartet token of that type. So there are these quartet tokens. So I would find the quartet token for the 3s and take it, which is these yellow and green ones. So I would take one of these. Once you have a quartet token, you cannot collect another quartet token. Whoever has the most of these will get a certain number of points at the end of the game. In addition to getting the quartet tokens, you will also get tips based on the cards that you just melded. So in this case, I would get 3 tips. So in each round, there is going to be 20 tip tokens for you to try to win. I believe it's 20 of each. Yeah, 20 tip tokens. So in one round, you will have tip tokens of one color. In another round, you will have tip tokens of another color. And finally, in the last round, tip tokens of another color. So if I melded a quartet of 3, I would take 3 tip tokens. So you're going to continue in this fashion, trying to meld quartets by bidding on different cards, which are revealed. And at the end of a turn, if you just melded and you won the bid, you can draw up to 4 cards. You can replenish to 4 cards rather, if your hand has fewer than 4 cards in it. So again, if you used a joker in order to bid, that joker must be placed in front of you. However, you can meld jokers, and you probably want to do that. It's probably a good thing to try to maybe get rid of jokers from your hand if you want to. So if you ended up with 4 jokers in your hand, you could meld those jokers and take a joker token, but you cannot collect any tips that way. Okay, now the end of a set. So the set ends immediately when one of the following happens. The last card is taken or turned up from the face down deck. In this case, any mouse tips remaining in the center are discarded to the box, or the last mouse tip in the center is claimed. In this case, if there are not enough mouse tips remaining to pay for the finishing player's quartet, they only receive what is left. Then you're going to add any jokers in your hand to those displayed before you. So you wanted to get rid of jokers if possible. And the player with the most joker loses 5 mouse tips of any color from their tip case card. So any tips you earn throughout the game from any of the 3 sets would be added to your case. But again, you're going to lose tips if you have the most jokers. So you would have wanted to meld jokers if possible. Then you will see, so if it was the first or second set, you then take all of the cards, shuffle them, and then you start again. By dealing 6 cards to each player. And then you start with the new set of mouse tips and you continue in that fashion. At the end of the game, after you've played 3 sets, the player who possesses the most quartet tokens, which again were these tokens, and again, each player can have only 1 quartet token of each type, they will receive a big tip, which is worth 10 mouse tips. So it is possible that more than one player can receive these if there is a tie for the most quartet tokens. And then whoever has the most tips is the winner. So yeah, so that is how you play. So it's just a little bidding game that's fun. Yeah, with a lot of different, cute cat cards in them. So it's fun to just see the different kinds of cat cards, that are musicians. So yeah. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game. I sucked at it. I really, really sucked at it, but I thought it was a good game. So yeah, so that is how that plays. Again, I'm not sure how the 7s change up the game. I think it's some special variant, and I do think that they freshened up the rules from when this game was first published in 1998. So yeah, so this is like a newer version of this Rainer Knizia game from 1998. So yeah, so if you enjoy quick bidding games and you're looking for a nice filler game for game night, then this might be a nice filler game for you to check out. So again, that was Cat Blues, The Big Gig. So let's move on. So my friends are going to be coming over and helping me to catalog all of my games. They thought it might be easier for me to decide which games to call if we categorize them or put them into a spreadsheet, and then I could decide which category in the spreadsheet I want to organize my games for, and it might be easier to visualize and then decide which games to call. So my friends are going to be coming over and helping me to catalog all 700 some of my games, which is kind of a little bit crazy, but yeah. But they are really looking forward to doing that. So, so if, it seems like something that they actually really want to do, and it was actually their idea to do this. So hopefully it will help me decide which games I need to call, because I definitely need to call a lot more games. But since they haven't come over yet, I don't have any new games to announce, because I decided I would wait until they help me with this spreadsheet, and then I will have a lot of games that will be getting called soon. So let's go on to games which I am backing. I'm currently not backing anything, which is a great feeling. I did receive a game which I had backed, I don't know how long ago, called Hex Effects. So that arrived. It's got a really cool box and just cool cards with cool artwork on them. So we'll just show you some of the cards with the artwork. So it's got that like weird, are these the right way up? Let me just, yeah, they're the right way up. So I really like the artwork in this game. It's got that weird, I don't know what it's called. This dude, I can't remember what he's called, like the plague or the death or whatever he's called. So there's a bunch of cards with him on it as well. So yeah. Just really, really love the artwork and the color of these cards. Like, they're just so pretty. Just really, really love them. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to playing this. Have no idea how it plays yet, but it just really intrigued me when it was on Kickstarter. So I hope it's good. We'll see. But a lot of games are going to be going to the cull pile, even if they've been played only once or twice, which is, a shame. So let's move on to updates. I have a sad cat update. Luckily, it was not a cat, but I found a dead animal frozen to the ground at colony number 2, which was really sad. The temperatures have been so frigid, like it's just really, really cold and just so snowy, like snow, like day after day it would snow, like new snow, just really, really frigid temperatures. And so one day I was at the colony and I saw like this kind of like lump, like this big, lump, like lump is not the right way to describe it because it's much bigger than a lump, like this big, like, thing. And I was like, what is that? So I brushed aside some of the snow because it was like, looked like some black fur was peeking out, and it turned out to be a dead skunk, like a pretty sizable dead skunk. So I don't know, I think he was an older skunk, and he was completely frozen solid to the ground, which was really, really sad. So I didn't know what to do. So I contacted the rescue organization that I work with, and they said I should just cover it with like a towel or something, so that the cats don't see it. And then once it thaws, then I can move it. So it did thaw out, and I actually moved it yesterday then. So I picked up this poor dead skunk and moved him away from the cat shelters to somewhere else so that nature can take its course, and maybe some like predatory birds can eat it. I don't know. But just very, very sad for the skunk, because as you guys know, like during the summer months, the skunks come out and eat, and they're really friendly with me, and they're just really, really cute, and I love skunks. I think that they're just really nice animals as well. So yeah, just really, really sad. I don't know how this poor skunk died or what happened, and I'm just really confused, like how he ended up there frozen to the ground. Like, I just don't understand what happened. But that was really, really sad. So again, just a call to action. If you see an animal in need, always do what you can, and don't assume that someone else will do something, because it is possible for even animals to get hypothermia and die. Like when temperatures are really frigid, do something kind and leave out some food, leave out some warm water, just do what you can to take care of the animals in your area. So yeah, so that is the cat update. So let's move on. So let's move on to Fiction Book Club. So for today, we were supposed to read chapters 6 and 7. So we find out how Aisha knows this Jinn, the dog man, and how they met. And apparently this Jinn was in love with Aisha, and then he stole some expensive slippers from her and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do not like how Aisha basically, was giving Hassan and Fatima a choice to basically turn in Hassan or things will get worse. worse. Like, you know, just really terrible. Like, I just don't think, obviously that's not fair. And, you know, Fatima even comments how it's not fair that someone from a lower class should have to sacrifice their life for the greater good of everyone else and blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was pretty unfair as well. So then Hassan, the Jinn, and Fatima embark on this adventure to run away because Aisha basically is like, okay, you guys can escape and I'll give you a little bit of a head start, but, you know, the Inquisition is going to come after you and try to find Hassan in order to capture him and stuff. So the Jinn, Hassan, and Fatima now embark on this journey, and yeah, and basically we're in the midst of this journey, I guess. So not too much else has happened. We've gotten some kind of flashbacks and stuff about, you know, Fatima's life and the Jinn's life, I guess, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, that's where we are. So I guess we'll find out what happens. I hope that they don't, you know, I hope that too many chapters don't focus on their travels and that we get to a little bit more action soon, because I was actually falling asleep while reading that one chapter, but maybe it was because I was reading it late at night as well. So maybe I was actually tired. But I am curious and I want, you know, the story to progress a bit more. So I want them to hurry up with this journey and get to where they're going and then have more action or more, you know, interesting stuff happen. So let's see. So we will find out. Oh, it was really gruesome how the Jinn was eating that one Inquisitor that had caught up with them. Like, that was really gross. Like, I was really grossed out by the description of him eating that person. And, you know, yeah, just really, really gross. And then I was kind of grossed out by the fact that Hassan and Fatima decided to eat the raw rabbits. Like, I guess, you know, if you're in a situation where you have no other food, you will do what it takes in order to keep alive. So I don't know if I would do that if I were in that situation, but maybe I would, because I've never been in that situation, so I don't know. So it is possible, you never know, but yeah, that was kind of gross as well. So yeah, so let's see what happens. So for next week, read the next 2 chapters, please. So read chapters 8 and 9 for next time. So let's see what happens. Let me know what you think so far, what you think of their like journey, and if you were as grossed out as I was. If you have any thoughts about the Jinn, let me know your thoughts about him as well. I guess I don't really have too much to say about him right now. He's not how I imagined he would be. He's got an interesting way of talking. I think the author's way of writing is really good as well. Like, I appreciate how she, you know, writes when she's talking, when the Jinn is talking, like, you can really feel that it's a different character speaking by the way that he speaks in this book. So yeah, I think the author is a really good writer as well. So yeah, so for next time, read the next 2 chapters, and yeah, let me know what you think so far in the comments below. So we had announced this book last week, and I hope all those who are participating in the nonfiction book club, or I guess we could call it the Palestine book club as well, have purchased or borrowed this book from their library in the meantime. And for today, we were supposed to read the introduction. So the introduction really just is setting up what this book is going to be about. You know, so there's really not too much to discuss because I know we're going to go into detail about all of these things from the introduction. So it's basically, you know, talking about how the name Palestine was a name that was commonly used throughout ancient history. So she mentions that in the introduction, and I think that we're going to learn about that a lot more later on. But it definitely, you know, I feel like all those Zionists who always say that, oh, Palestine never existed, Palestine isn't actually a place, and blah, 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 blah. Like, she literally provides proof of the name Palestine being used even in ancient history. Like, there is proof that it's existed. And I really like how she breaks down like what a country is as opposed to what a modern nation state is. So this chapter, this introduction, also talks about a country versus a modern nation state, which I think is really worth reading and important for people to read. It also discussed the misinterpretation of what Al-Sham is, right? So people think that Al-Sham refers to just modern day Syria. They don't realize that it actually encompassed Palestine and other parts of the Near East as well. So I like how she discusses that as well and clears up misconceptions about Syria and Al-Sham and Palestine, and again shows that yes, Palestine always did exist and has existed since the Bronze Age, which was a very long time ago. So I really love how she's bringing up all this proof about the existence of Palestine. She even mentions at one point that the stories in the Old Testament are simply that, no, they're just stories. And she says here, let me see if I can find it. So she's going to break down how these stories from the Bible are not real and how they've led to, Palestinian people being colonized and oppressed based on these stories, which are not real from the Bible. So, as a practicing Muslim, I'm sure that she's going to end up saying stuff in this book, which maybe will make me question certain beliefs as well, as she breaks down how, certain religious stories are actually not true. And she started talking about that a bit in the introduction as well. She started talking about how there's no proof that, this mass exodus actually took place, which Jewish people commemorate every year, and so on. That there's been no archaeological proof of certain things that, are claimed in the Bible. So really interesting. Really looking forward to learning more about that. At one point she says, Israeli historians often seek to belittle Palestine and minimize the fact that the conceptual experiences of Palestine are deeply rooted in the ancient past, which I think is 100% true, and we've seen that in the previous books we've read as well. So again, not too much to talk about here, but again, she just is setting up what we're going to learn about in the rest of the book, and I'm really, really intrigued, and I'm really, really excited. I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited. So, I know that this was just a very quick overview of the introduction, but I'm not going to go in depth in the introduction because again, we're going to go in depth into what she talks about in the introduction within each chapter. So for next week, please read chapter 1, which is the Philistines and Philistia as a distinct geopolitical entity, late Bronze Age to 500 BC. So again, it's a little bit long, but I think we can do it. Oh, actually, it's not that long. I think I actually went chapter 2 for it. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's not that long actually. I accidentally was going all the way to chapter 4 when I was trying to figure out how long it was. So it's actually quite short, so I think we can totally do it. So it's pages 55 to 70. So for next week, read chapter 1 of this book, and super excited to talk about all the stuff that we've learned in the introduction in detail. So let's move on. So I just want to talk a little bit about what's happening still in Palestine and now with the fires in California, which are just absolutely horrible. So I want to talk about how, like, for example, this one actress. So what we're seeing in California is, a lot of wealthy people have had their homes burned down, including an actor who at one point had said that all Palestinians should be killed. Now this actor has had his home burnt down, and he was seen crying on the news about it and asking for people to consider donating and things like that. Yet he had no problem with encouraging a genocide of the Palestinians. Am I saying that what is happening in California is punishment? No, I'm not, saying that God is taking divine punishment on a bunch of people, which includes a lot of innocent people and animals, for what some people may have said or done. I'm not God. I don't know what God's plan is. And, a lot of you may not even believe in God. This, of course, is all due to climate change as well. And it's due to carbon emissions, and it's due to people not taking care of the planet and so on. But all these things are interconnected, and I hope that more and more people are waking up to that fact with these really, really terrible fires which are happening, and they're happening all around the world, these fires. You may not hear about it on the news, but in South America there have been raging fires as well. People need to wake up and get their news from news sources which are not biased, which are not, full of propaganda, which are not trying to get you to believe in a certain thing. Seek out news sources that will actually show you the truth. One actress who made this actress, Jamie Lee Curtis, when the genocide started, she mistakenly took a photo of Gazan children and said, oh, look at these poor Israeli children and, you know, what's happening to them, blah, blah, blah. And then when people accurately pointed out that she was mistaken and that was a photo of Gazan children, she immediately deleted her tweet and never spoke about Gaza again. Now that her house has burnt down and her home is, you know, her home city is in danger, she now mentions Gaza again, more than a year later. What did she say? So she was like at a press conference for a movie or something, and she mentioned how California looks like a war-torn zone like Gaza. And I'm like, how dare you? And like, how dare you mention Gaza when you have not mentioned Gaza for over a year? When people corrected you, you took down the photograph because you wanted to create sympathy for Israelis. You did not care that Gazan children were being killed and were, you know, that they're in the midst of a genocide. And now she's using Gaza to try to gain sympathy for herself and other people who are suffering from these fires in California. Like, just something to think about, something, you know, I do believe in karma, and I do believe that, you know, we are people that humans should care about all suffering everywhere. And if you are just not a good human, I do think that karma will come and kick you in the butt someday. So maybe that is what is happening to them. Who knows? I don't know. But it's just really, really upsetting to see that now people are uttering the name Gaza when they have not cared about the genocide for over a year. And the genocide is still ongoing. Like, so, you know, the fires are really, really terrible. There's just so many images of animals who have been killed. And, you know, I know people are probably like, you always care more about animals than humans. It's just, I always think that animals are more helpless than humans in a lot of ways because, you know, they may not know what's going on. They don't understand what you know, why things are happening. They don't know where to run to. And even if they do run out of the places which are on fire and go somewhere else, then they're, you know, going to be surrounded by humans who may not wish them well. Like, animals are just always suffering in ways that humans don't suffer in as well. So I do, you know, really have a lot of sympathy for animals who are suffering in fires and, you know, when there's droughts, when there's, you know, war or a genocide going on. There's so many animals suffering in Palestine because of the genocide as well. Like, I've seen a lot of comparisons. And one thing that really sticks out is how the people of Palestine have actually said to the people of California how they are sorry for what they're going through. So here are the people who have been in the midst of a genocide for over a year expressing empathy for the people of California. Like, I don't know, you know, for over a year, you've seen how these Palestinians are, how resilient they are, how empathetic they are, what wonderful people they are. And despite all the hardships that they are going through, which is imposed on them by Israel and the United States, they still continue to have empathy for others who suffer around the world. Like, you know, that should really show you what kinds of people the Palestinians are. And yeah, it's just really, really sad. I've noticed that the board game industry is gearing up to do another fundraiser for PCRF, the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. And I just want to point out again how hypocritical these people are, because they will raise money and pat themselves on the back, yet they still will not condemn Zionism. They still will not condemn the root cause of Palestinian suffering, the root cause of this genocide, and they still continue to support their Zionist friends in this industry. Like, for example, Level Up Retreat is coming up, and Alex from Board Game Co. has a huge role in Level Up Retreat. I don't even know if like he actually owns the convention or he's like the main runner, like the main organizer of this convention. I don't know. But if one thing is pretty clear, even if he has not explicitly said he's a Zionist, it's pretty clear that he's Zionist based on that one video he made in October of 2023, and he never corrected his mistakes from that video when he said he would. He's never followed up with another video. He's never followed up with any kind of posts or anything to talk about what Israel is doing is wrong. Instead, in that one video he made, he talked about how Israel has the right to the land and he believes that they're in the right and it belongs to them and so on and blah, blah, blah. He's never condemned the genocide. He's never explicitly said that he's not a Zionist. So yeah, And so we still see in this industry people supporting Zionist and Zionist publishers like KTPG, Kids Table Board Gaming, and Burnt Island Games. And so all these people who are going to pat themselves on the back yet again for having another fundraiser, raising money for Palestinian children, you know, maybe it's just a way for them to make themselves feel better, for knowing deep down inside what hypocrites and shills they are in, you know, in reality. I don't know, maybe that's just a way for them to try to clear their conscience for what they actually are. And what they actually are is not supporters of Palestine. Because I can assure you that no Palestinian wants money from someone who still gives business to Zionists. Like, for over a year, we have been saying how Zionists are the worst, and we've seen how they are the worst. They are modern day settler colonialists, and they support a genocide. They support apartheid. They support everything that is terrible in this world, and people continue to support them in this industry and turn a blind eye to them. So yeah, so when this new fundraiser starts, I again encourage people to speak up. Like, literally no one is speaking up. There's like one other content creator, two other content creators who are vocal, but one who is vocal about Zionists in this industry, who is, I believe their Instagram handle is like a Game with Care, I believe, and I really appreciate them for speaking out and speaking out against the Zionists in the industry, because no one else is doing it, like literally no one else. So yeah, so speak up against the Zionists in this industry, just like you would want other people to speak up about any KKK members if they existed in this industry. Would you just be fine with KKK, you know, triple K members just being in this industry and people buying their games and supporting them, while on the flip side claiming to support Black Lives Matter? Like, no, you would call that out. You would call that out for what it is, which is hypocrisy. And so yeah, so call out the Zionists and you know, alert your favorite content creators and designers and publishers to the fact that you do not support Zionism, because until more people speak up, this industry will continue to support the Zionists in this industry. And it's just really, really upsetting to see. So yeah. Do I expect things to change? Probably. I don't think that things are going to change, at least not for another, I don't know, 5-10 years minimum. Like, who knows? Who really knows if it will ever change? But yeah, just, you know, just wanted to make people aware of this fundraiser that will be coming up by the same people who support all the Zionists in the industry. So yeah, so just be mindful of that. And of course, they're not going to reach out to people like me who have been advocating for Palestine over a year, trying to educate people about Palestine for over a year. These people are not educating themselves. These are the same people who over a year ago, back in 2021, called me dangerous for pointing out who the Zionists in this industry were. So yeah, so, you know, at the end of the day, it's pretty clear that they don't actually care about Palestine, and they're just doing this to pat themselves on the back and get some brownie points for themselves. So yeah, so that's all I want to say about that. So let's move on. So I have two questions for you for this week's question of the week. The first one is, what other game has a name that makes you believe the game is about something entirely different than what it's actually about? So Shuffle and Swing is not a game about swing dancing. It's about animals, mice and cats, constructing musical instruments. Again, not a game about swing dancing. So that is the first question. And the next question is, which strategic game which uses dice in order to determine the strength of an action do you enjoy? So let me know your answers in the comments below, and until next time, bye.